My daughter said, "If you can't pay more, you don't belong here." So I sold everything. I wake up at 5:45 every morning. Not because I have anywhere to be, but because 45 years of early shifts at the Boulder Electric Cooperative still cling to my bones like the smell of soldered wire. These days, I wake not to the buzz of an alarm clock, but to the familiar creak of pipes in the wall. The first floor bathroom flushes upstairs, which means Eli's already up. 5 minutes later, I hear my daughter Dana in the kitchen, smooth jazz playing low on the smart speaker as she makes his oatmeal just the way he likes it. They never eat breakfast together. It's a strange little dance of independence between two people who share a mortgage and a last name, but never quite a morning. He grabs his protein shake and leaves. She lingers, scrolling through bank apps and bill alerts on her phone, sighing loud enough that even the kettle notices. At 6:30 sharp, she knocks on my door. It's always the same. 2 quick knocks. Just enough to check if I've passed in my sleep. "Dad." Still with us, she calls through the door. Her voice is chipper but thin, like a smile that never reaches the eyes. Still kicking, I call back. "Breakfast in 20, she says, already turning away. I sit up, swinging my stiff legs over the edge of the bed. The floor is cold. Always is. Dana and Eli keep the thermostat at 65 year-round to keep bills reasonable. This despite Eli being a financial advisor who makes 6 figures and drives a Lexus he leases for tax reasons. My room used to be the guest room. Now it's mine, modified slightly with grab bars and a plastic riser for the toilet like a hospital ward trying to pass as home. Home, I whisper to myself. The word tastes strange in my mouth. I've lived here for 6 years now, but I'm not sure if home is the right word when you pay rent for a place you secretly own. Yes, you heard that right. This 3-bedroom house with the nice porch and the crabapple tree out front, I bought it. In 2006. Paid cash. The paperwork is under a shell company I created the year before. That was shortly after I won the Colorado Powerball, won $62 million after taxes. I never told a soul. Not Dana. Not Eli. Not even Margaret, my late wife, may she rest. She was sick already back then. Pancreatic cancer. We were in and out of hospitals so often the nurses knew her coffee order. I used the lottery money to pay for her treatment, yes, but I didn't tell her about the full sum. Margaret was always too generous. She would have handed it to the kids like Halloween candy, and they would have swallowed it whole before the wrappers hit the floor. So I bought this house, put it in a trust. Told the kids I found a great rental deal from a retired electrician friend who wanted long-term tenants. They believed it without a question. Because of course they did. They were too busy asking for help with down payments, tuition, and wedding loans to wonder where their old man was living. Margaret passed in 2008. After that, I kept the story going. When Dana and Eli invited me to move in after I slipped on the porch one winter, I agreed. They said it'll be better for all of us, and maybe part of me believed that. So I moved into my own house, started paying Dana rent $200 to $200 a month. On top of that, I give her another $350, $400 each month for utilities. That's her word, not mine. Because apparently an old man with one lamp and a weather radio uses up more power than Eli's dual monitor workstation or Dana's endless loads of laundry. I make the transfers every month like clockwork. She even set me up with an automatic Zelle payment, so you don't forget Dad. I nodded and smiled, because what else could I do? You might ask why I went along with it. Why let them believe I'm some washed-up pensioner barely making it on Social Security? Why keep the lie going? Well, let me ask you something. If your kids had shown over and over again that they only come around when you're holding something they want, would you trust them with the truth? I tried to once when Dana was 27 and Eli's crypto investments went south. I offered to co-sign a loan. That was mistake enough. They defaulted 6 months in. I paid off the balance quietly and swore never again. So I play the role they wrote for me. Helpless, grateful, dependent. It's easier. At 6:55, I shuffle into the kitchen. The breakfast table is already set. Same thing every day: oatmeal with water, no butter, half a banana. Dana reads the paper on her iPad and doesn't look up. Morning, I offer. You're late, she replies, sipping her coffee. Clock says 6:57, I counter with a smile. She doesn't return it. You remember rent's due Monday. I remember, I say. You're a good tenant, she says, sarcastic. Eli enters wearing earbuds, glances at me, nods once and grabs his keys. Electric bills higher than usual, he tosses toward Dana, but the look he gives me is pointed. Maybe we need to check the heat settings in Dad's room. I keep it at 65 like the rest of the house, I say. Calmly. Still, let's be mindful, Dana interjects. Mindful. That's their favorite word lately. Be mindful of expenses. Be mindful of how much hot water you use. Be mindful of turning off lights. Always we, but the finger points at me. Just then, Isabel breezes in like a breath of clean air. Morning, Grandpa, she chirps, planting a kiss on my cheek. Morning, sweetheart. Late night studying, don't ask. She says, grabbing a protein bar and an apple. I've got class until noon, then work at Java Joe's. But if you want to take a walk tomorrow, I'm free after lunch. I smile. I'd like that. Dinah jumps in. He can't. The HVAC tech is coming tomorrow. The thermostat is acting up again. I'm sure they'll come in the morning, I offer. We could walk later. Dana shakes her head. We don't know what time yet. Better stay in. Isabel shoots me a look. That look we've exchanged so many times. The one that says, ignore her. You're still you. She leaves soon after, and the air thickens again. Eli's gone. Dana clears the dishes. Utilities this month will be $395, she says, without looking up. I nod, sipping lukewarm coffee. I don't even flinch at the number anymore. The injustice no longer shocks me, but it's starting to weigh, and I feel something shifting inside me, something I buried 20 years ago when I bought this house in secret. Something like resolve. After Dana clears the table, she starts wiping the already clean countertops, like she's scrubbing away something more than crumbs. Maybe it's guilt, or maybe she's just bored. I stand up to rinse my mug, but she intercepts me with that familiar look. I'll take care of it, Dad, she says. Go rest. Go rest. Another polite way to say, go disappear. So I retreat to my room, my rented corner of a house I bought with cash 2 decades ago. The radio on my desk still works. I fixed it myself last year after Eli dropped it while tidying. The knob clicks with a satisfying snap as I turn the dial and let soft jazz fill the space. Not too loud. Wouldn't want to disturb my landlords. I sit down in the old armchair by the window. Through the glass, I can see the backyard. Isabel once planted herbs there during high school, but Dana yanked them out, said they attracted bugs. Now it's just gravel and 2 lounge chairs no one uses. I remember when this yard was green and alive. Margaret would prune the rose bush by hand, wearing that ridiculous polka dot sun hat. Every spring she planted marigolds, said they kept the bad energy out. I didn't believe in that kind of thing, but somehow it always felt lighter when those orange flowers bloomed. After she passed, I kept the garden going for a while. But then Dana moved in, and things changed. The marigolds were too messy. The bird feeders attract rodents. And one by one, all the things that made this place feel like ours disappeared, replaced by solar-powered pathway lights and xeriscaped gravel to reduce maintenance costs. Now the yard looks like something out of a real estate brochure, efficient, lifeless, silent. I sit by the window for a long while. The radio plays Autumn in New York, and though we're nowhere near Manhattan, I feel the melancholy in every note. Outside, the neighbor across the fence is walking his dog. He waves when he sees me, and I wave back. He thinks I'm just Dana's old man, the tenant, the burden. He doesn't know I paid for every shingle on this roof, every pipe, every beam. He doesn't know I signed the closing documents myself in 2006. And that this house, this place where I now ask permission to raise the blinds, was once my declaration of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I could control my legacy. That was before I learned legacy isn't something you control. It's something others carve from your silence. Around noon, I step outside to check the mailbox. A habit. There's rarely anything for me. Bills go to Dana and Eli. But still, I like the feeling of opening it. A small act of ownership, even if no one else knows it. Today, there's only one envelope addressed to me, Howard M. Whitaker from Boulder Electric Cooperative, a newsletter. They still send those. I helped design their circuit mapping system in 901. There's a small blurb about a retiree reunion next month. I consider going then. Remember the look Dana gave me last time I wore my old company jacket to the grocery store. People will think you're still working, Dad. That's awkward. I go back inside, fold the newsletter carefully, and place it on the bookshelf beside Margaret's Bible and my radio repair manual. Around 3 p.m., I hear Isabel's keys jingle in the door. She's home early from her shift at the coffee shop. Grandpa, she calls softly, peeking into my room. I'm here, I say, straightening up. She slips inside, dropping her backpack on the floor. Her cheeks are flushed from the cold. Do you want some tea? I can make that cinnamon chamomile you like. That would be lovely, I nod. While she boils water, we talk. She tells me about her sociology class, about a heated debate on economic inequality and generational wealth. I chuckle. Ironic topic for this household, I say. She laughs, then sobers. Grandpa, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever feel invisible? Like people talk around you, but not to you. I look at her startled. Not because of the question, but because she voiced something I've been afraid to admit even to myself. All the time I answer. She nods like she already knew. I see you, she whispers. Something in my chest shifts. No one said that to me in years, maybe decades. I want to tell her everything right then about the house, the lottery, the lie. But I don't. Not yet. She's too kind, too loyal. I won't make her choose between truth and her parents. When she leaves for the library, Dana returns home. The front door slams in that particular way that tells me something's gone wrong at work. By dinner, Eli is home too. The three of us sit in the kitchen, each chewing in silence. I try to talk about a documentary I watched, but Dana cuts me off, says she's too tired for TV talk. Eli mutters something about market volatility and heads to his office. As I clear my plate, Dana speaks up. Rent's due Monday, Dad. I know, I reply. And utilities are $395, I remember. She eyes me carefully. Just make sure you transfer it by Sunday night. You were a day late last month. I was not. But I nod anyway, because what's the point? After dinner, I go back to my room, close the door, and sit at my desk. I pull out a small lockbox from the bottom drawer. Inside a bundle of papers, the deed to the house bank statements, a check from the Colorado lottery dated 2003. I haven't looked at them in years. The balance in that hidden account now stands at $1.13 million. I kept it modest, never invested in anything flashy. A little here, a little there, a CD, a bond. Enough to grow quietly. Enough to protect myself when the day came. I never thought that day would come so small. Not with screaming or betrayal, but with utility bills and cold oatmeal. But I feel it now. The click of a switch. The final tug of a wire. Something's about to change, and I'm the one holding the breaker. The moment came on a Wednesday morning. Nothing dramatic. No raised voices, no slammed doors. Just a folded spreadsheet on the kitchen counter, and Dana's voice casual like she was suggesting we rearrange the living room. "I've been going over our household budget, Dad," she said, pouring herself a glass of oat milk. "And I think it's time we talk about your contribution." I was spreading peanut butter on half a piece of toast, doctor's orders on portion control. I didn't respond right away. "We've been carrying a lot lately," she continued. "Eli's firm lost 2 clients this quarter, and Isabel's tuition payments just went up. Not to mention utilities, groceries, property taxes." She paused dramatically. "You understand?" I looked up at her then. She wasn't angry. She was rehearsed. Her tone too smooth, her expression too neutral. I recognized the performance. I'd seen her use it on customer service reps, college admissions officers, waiters who brought the wrong wine. "What do you have in mind?" I asked. She pushed the paper toward me. A new rent amount. $2,750 a month, plus $450 utilities estimated for future adjustments. I blinked. "That's an increase of $700 total." She nodded. "Give or take." "I see," I said, slowly folding the paper in half. There was a silence then. Long enough to stretch, to sting. The kind of silence where truth slips in uninvited. "Look, Dad," Dana said, her voice tightening. "We're not trying to squeeze you. But things are getting tight. And this house, it's big, expensive. You have a room, your own bathroom, 3 meals a day. You don't pay for insurance or maintenance or property tax. You've got it good." Got it good. I swallowed a bitter laugh. I was living in my own house, paying inflated rent to my daughter, and being told I was lucky for the privilege. I wanted to say, "You're living on my roof. I paid for this place in full when you were still figuring out how to pay off your engagement ring." But I didn't. Old habits die hard. The habit of swallowing words, of nodding through disrespect, of keeping the peace at the cost of dignity. "How soon do you need a decision?" I asked. Dana shrugged. "We'd like to adjust the next payment, so by Sunday night would be best." She said it like a banker, not a daughter, and I heard what she didn't say aloud. Pay the new rate or start packing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the sounds of the house, familiar and foreign all at once. The creak of the floorboards, the soft humming of the refrigerator. The house I bought, the house I maintained, had become a place where I needed permission to exist. In the silence, I reached for the notebook in my nightstand. The one where I kept numbers. costs, plans. And just below my last grocery list, I wrote, pay more or get out. Dana, age 43. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration, and I had just 4 days to answer. The next morning, I walked a different route. I told Dana I was going for my usual stroll through Chautauqua Park, but instead of turning left on Evergreen Drive, I turned right toward Pine Hill Lane where Kyle Truman lived. Kyle was the kind of neighbor people liked instantly. Former college baseball player turned real estate broker, mid-50s, barrel-chested, with an easy laugh and a Patagonia vest for every season. We'd exchanged pleasantries for years, just enough for him to know I was Dana's dad and nothing more. But I knew more about him than he did about me. I knew he'd just closed a $1.4 million home across town. I knew he specialized in quiet transactions for high-value homes. And I knew he kept his client list confidential, even from his own wife. He was trimming hedges when I approached. "Morning, Kyle," I said. He looked up, surprised, then grinned. "Mr. Whitaker, what brings you over here?" I nodded toward his porch. "Got a minute?" He put down the shears and gestured to the steps. "Of course." "Coffee, no thank you. I paused, choosing my words. "I need a bit of advice. Real estate advice." His eyes flickered, interest peaked. "I'm listening." I glanced back down the block. The street was quiet. No Dana, no Eli. Good. I'm thinking of selling my house. Kyle blinked. "The one on Cedarwood Lane." I nodded. He whistled. "That place is a gem. Big lot. Great bones. Close to trailheads. You'll get interest fast." I cleared my throat. "There's a wrinkle." Kyle raised an eyebrow. "My daughter and her family live there. They think they're the owners. But the house is in my name. Always has been. I bought it under a trust." Kyle didn't speak for a moment. Then he gave a slow, impressed smile. "Well, now that's unusual, but not unworkable." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I don't want them to know I'm the seller. Not yet. Not until it's done." "Can you handle something like that?" Kyle nodded. "We'd sell through a holding LLC. Your name won't appear until closing, and even then, it'll be buried in the documents. I've done it before. People sell property they live in, rent, or let's say cohabitate under all kinds of complicated arrangements." His tone was respectful. No judgment. Just facts. I exhaled. "For now, I just want to know the numbers. What it might be worth." Kyle pulled out his phone. "Ballpark off the top of my head. 890 to 920. More if it's well maintained. Maybe higher with the right marketing." He looked at me closely. "Howard, are you serious about this?" I nodded once. "Then I'll run comps today. We can do a quiet pre-appraisal without entering the house, just from exterior photos and public records. If you want, I can even draft listing documents under the LLC and hold off activating them until you give the word." "I appreciate that," I said. As I stood to go, Kyle hesitated, then added, "I've seen folks make moves like this before. It's never easy, especially with family." I smiled thinly. Easy ended a long time ago. Back home, Dana was in the kitchen sorting receipts into plastic sleeves, her weekend ritual. "Did you enjoy your walk?" she asked without looking up. "I did," I said. She didn't ask where I went. She never does. And I didn't volunteer that I'd just taken the first real step toward leaving them behind. Not out of bitterness, but because staying had finally become more painful than going. That night, I sat by the window again, watching the porch lights flicker on automatically on a timer I installed 15 years ago, back when I still had a say in the systems of this house. I thought of Margaret, of her laugh in spring, of the way she used to say, "Howard, sometimes silence is dignity. But sometimes silence is surrender." I'd kept the silence for too long, and now it was time to speak with action. I started packing on a Monday. Not everything, not all at once, just the things that mattered. My father's wristwatch. A stack of yellowing Polaroids from our first house on Foothills Parkway. Margaret's last handwritten recipe for her lemon butter pie, still faintly stained with flour. It's strange the way your life can shrink to 3 boxes and a battered suitcase when you subtract everything you kept, only to keep the peace. Dana was at work. Eli had a conference in Denver. Isabel had classes until late. It was the perfect silence to begin the transition. I worked slowly, carefully. Every drawer was a reminder. The old drawer where I once hid birthday gifts for Dana as a girl, now full of overdue mail and passive-aggressive grocery lists. The shelf where Margaret's photo used to stand, now held Dana's wellness journal and a half-burned soy candle labeled Abundance. By noon, I had filled a box and a half. I sat down to rest, flipping through a manila folder that held all the legal papers Kyle had drafted for the LLC listing. He had moved fast. The man was as efficient as he was discreet. The property would go live in 4 days, just enough time for pre-qualified buyers to see it, before Dana or Eli suspected anything. I was halfway through reviewing the listing photos when Isabel appeared in my doorway. She never knocked. She never had to. Her eyes landed on the half-packed box, the papers on the desk, the manila folder open to the first page that read, "Whitaker Lane Property Owner Authorized Sale." She froze. "Grandpa," her voice was barely a whisper. I looked up. For a second I considered hiding it, shuffling papers, making excuses. But I was tired of that. Tired of pretending, so I just said, "Close the door, sweetheart. We should talk." She did, and she sat down on the edge of the bed, her fingers curled into the hem of her hoodie like a child bracing for a story that changes everything. "Are you moving out?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes." She blinked fast. Because of what Mom said about the rent, I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked gently, "Have you ever wondered who owns this house?" Isabel tilted her head. "Mom always said it was some old friend of yours. You just paid the rent directly, and she passed it along." I smiled. That's the story I let everyone believe. The truth is, I bought this house 18 years ago. With money I won from the lottery. Quietly. I put it in a trust so no one could touch it. Not Dana, not your Uncle Weston. Not even your grandmother, God rest her soul. Margaret was too generous. She would have handed it all over if someone cried hard enough. Isabel's jaw dropped. "You've owned this house all along." "Yes. And they charged you rent." "They did. 200 tatams a month, plus utilities." She shook her head slowly, like the room was moving, and she needed to hold still. "Grandpa, I don't even know what to say." "I'm telling you now," I said softly, "because you're the only one who's ever seen me not as an obligation or a source of income, but as a person. And you deserve to know the truth." She didn't cry. That surprised me. Instead, she sat upright and clenched her fists like she was trying to keep from breaking something. "So what happens now?" she asked. I looked at her carefully. "Now," I said. "Now I sell the house. Quietly. And I move into a place that fits my age, my pace, and my peace. Somewhere no one watches the thermostat or asks me to justify turning on the light at 3 a.m. Isabel was silent for a moment. Then she stood and walked to the door. "Don't do anything until I come back," she said firmly. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To get you a proper moving box," she said without turning around. Then she was gone. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself a full, unfiltered smile. The next 3 days passed with the eerie stillness of a tide just before it turns. I kept to my routine: up before 6, oatmeal for breakfast, a short walk around the block. Dana didn't suspect a thing. Why would she? In her mind, I was a man on a pension, obedient and forgetful, too slow to act, too polite to rebel. She had no idea I was watching the clock tick down to the day I would no longer be her tenant, but her landlord no longer. Kyle sent me the final listing photos Thursday morning. He'd done a brilliant job. Bright angles, perfect lighting. Even the patchy backyard looked charming. I reviewed the ad one last time, then gave him the go-ahead. It went live Friday at 9:00 a.m. By 11:30, there were 3 viewing requests. By 2:00 p.m., Kyle texted hot property. 1 cash buyer already interested. Showing scheduled for Monday, 10:30 a.m. I told him Dana would be at work. He asked for the spare key. I handed it over the next morning in an envelope, no questions asked. Saturday came like any other day, except this time the weight I carried wasn't shame. It was anticipation. You ever carry a secret so long that it became part of your posture, that even your spine curved around it? If so, did it ever feel like standing up straight again would shatter the world around you? That's how I felt every moment leading up to Sunday evening. That night, just after dinner, Dana stood at the sink rinsing dishes. Eli was in the living room, clicking through stock charts, like a man trying to predict the weather on Mars. I was drinking tea when Dana's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, then frowned, then froze. "Eli," she called out, her voice a little too high. "Did you see this?" He walked over, drying his hands on a dish towel. She turned the screen toward him. I couldn't see what it said, but I didn't have to. They both stared at it in silence. Then Eli muttered, "That has to be a mistake." Dana pulled out her laptop and started typing furiously. Her brows furrowed as she clicked through pages, her jaw clenched. Then she turned to me. "Dad," she said, her voice sharp and thin. "Did you see anything unusual around the house this week? Anyone strange realtors?" I blinked innocently. "No, not that I recall." "There's a listing online," she said, clearly rattled. "Our house. This house. Someone's selling it. It's listed under some LLC, and there's already a scheduled showing on Monday." "Sounds serious," I murmured, sipping my tea. Eli frowned. "The name on the listing agent is Kyle Truman. Isn't that the guy from Pine Hill?" Dana nodded. "I'm going to call him." She stepped out to the porch and dialed. I watched her pacing, agitated. 10 minutes later, she returned, face pale, voice flat. "He says the owner authorized the sale," she muttered, "and that we should expect a notice of sale and a formal request to vacate within 30 days of closing. That there's nothing we can do. That everything's legal." I set my cup down. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. Donna stared at me. "You don't seem surprised." I met her eyes. Calm, clear. I suppose I've just learned not to assume permanence in someone else's home. That night, she didn't speak to me again. I heard them arguing upstairs, her voice cracking, Eli's voice rising. Something about fraud, about loopholes, about who owns what. But none of it mattered. The wheel had turned, and soon they'd know exactly whose name was etched into the foundation of this house, not metaphorically, but on the deed. The next morning, Kyle called. "Howard, you have 3 offers. One's all cash. $885,000. No contingencies. They want to close in 21 days. Six looked out the window. The crabapple tree had started blooming again. Even nature had decided it was time to begin anew. "I accept," I said quietly. "Let's move forward." As I hung up, I heard the stairs creak. Isabel stood at the top, watching me. "You okay?" she asked. "I am now," I said. And for the first time in 18 years, I meant it. Monday morning dawned sharp and golden, the way spring mornings in Boulder sometimes do, just cold enough to keep the air honest, just warm enough to make you believe in starting over. I was already dressed and seated by the window when the black Lexus pulled up at 10:28 a.m. A young couple stepped out, real estate chic in every way. She wore high-waisted linen pants and tortoiseshell sunglasses. He wore an REI vest and carried a leather-bound folder like it contained something sacred. They were smiling. Kyle followed close behind, shaking their hands like an old friend. He spotted me through the living room window and gave a subtle nod. I returned it. Inside, Dana was still in her bathrobe. She hadn't spoken to me since the night she found the listing. Eli had taken the day off to assess the situation, which really meant he spent the morning on the phone with a cousin who was a paralegal and apparently knew absolutely nothing about property trusts. At exactly 10:30, the doorbell rang. Dana startled. "Don't answer it," she said, loud enough to sound authoritative, but not loud enough to stop me from walking to the door. I opened it. "Mr. Whitaker," the woman asked, cheerful and oblivious. "Yes," I replied. "We're here for the showing with Mr. Truman." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Dana stormed down the stairs, tightening the belt on her robe. "Excuse me," she snapped. "This is a mistake. This house isn't for sale." Kyle entered behind them, clipboard in hand, voice calm as lake water. "Actually, Dana," he said, "it is. And the owner has already accepted an offer." Dana's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted from Kyle to me, then back again. "I want to see documentation," she demanded. "I want proof." Kyle pulled a folder from his bag and handed it over. Dana flipped through the pages. I could see the exact moment she reached the trust documents, the deed, the confirmation of ownership. Her face drained of color. "You lied to us," she whispered. I looked at her, steady and even. "No," I said. I simply stopped lying to myself. She blinked, stunned. "You let us believe. You believed what you wanted to believe," I replied, not unkindly. "Because it suited you." Eli joined her at the landing. "This is fraud," he spat. "You used a shell company to sell a house I legally own in my own name without your permission." I finished. "Yes, I did. And I used a shell company to protect myself from exactly this kind of outburst." He flinched. The young couple hovered awkwardly near the fireplace, unsure whether to stay or flee. Kyle offered to give them a tour while the family clarified details. Dana didn't move. "You can't do this," she said quietly. "I already did." The silence that followed was the kind that rings. Isabel, who had been sitting on the staircase, finally stood. "I think it's brave," she said softly. Dana turned to her, face pinched. "You knew I did," Isabel replied. "And I didn't say anything because I knew how you'd react." "You think this is fair?" Dana asked her daughter. "You think it's okay for him to just pull the rug out from under us?" Isabel looked at her mother, really looked at her. "I think Grandpa paid for this rug a long time ago. You just forgot whose name was on the receipt." By Tuesday afternoon, the final paperwork was in motion. Kyle brought over the documents for signature. I sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table still, and signed every page with a calm, deliberate hand. When I handed him the pen back, he looked at me and said, "You sure you want to move out before closing? You technically don't have to. You have time." I smiled. "I've had time. What I need now is space." We shook hands. I packed in silence that evening. No tears. No pleading. Dana didn't speak to me. Eli avoided me entirely. Isabel helped me fold clothes and line the cardboard boxes with old towels. She didn't say much either, but her presence was all I needed. She knew. I'd booked a furnished apartment 2 towns over in Louisville. Not fancy, but sunny quiet, and with a second-floor unit that looked out over a dog park. The rent was modest, and I could walk to the grocery store. More importantly, it was mine. No more whispered remarks. No more being watched. No more pretending to be grateful for being allowed to exist in the house I built with my own hands. I left at sunrise, didn't wait for goodbyes, didn't leave a note in the kitchen. Instead, I left a letter in the mailbox addressed to Dana and Eli, sealed and signed. The house you lived in was never yours. The silence you interpreted as weakness was restraint, and the decision I made was not out of anger, but necessity. I wish you clarity even if it comes late. Howard Whitaker. Isabel helped carry my final box to the car. Before I shut the trunk, she hugged me tight. "Call me when you get there, and I'll visit." "I'd like that," I said. Then I drove off. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. There was nothing back there worth carrying forward. That night I sat on my new balcony, a warm breeze brushing my face, and for the first time in decades, I breathed without bracing myself. I didn't feel victorious. I felt restored. Sometimes reclaiming your life doesn't look like a fight. It looks like a door closing quietly behind you as you walk into peace. Have you ever had to walk away not to escape, but to finally return to yourself? The new place smelled like lemon oil and fresh paint. I moved in on a Wednesday, 2 days before the closing. The property manager, a kind woman named Lorraine with silver braids and orthopedic sneakers, handed me the keys and a welcome folder. Inside the Wi-Fi password, a neighborhood map, and a handwritten note that said, "Mr. Whitaker, we're honored to have you here. If you need anything, don't hesitate." It was the first time in years someone welcomed me without qualifiers. No conditions, no unspoken expectations. Just presence offered freely. I spent the first day unpacking what little I brought: 3 boxes of books, my old radio kit, the recliner I refused to leave behind. I bought a kettle, a good one, heavy and red. I brewed tea that night while listening to Coltrane on a modest Bluetooth speaker Isabel gifted me the week before. No one hovered over the thermostat. No one asked when I'd be home. No one reminded me that I was lucky to still be living here. It's funny, isn't it? How silence can feel like punishment in one place and like freedom in another. The second morning, I walked to the little diner down the street, Mabel's Cafe. Vinyl booths, strong coffee, and the kind of staff that calls everyone hon after 7 a.m. I brought a book, Steinbeck, and sat for 2 full hours. No one rushed me. A teenage server refilled my cup without asking and said she liked the way I underlined things in pencil. I smiled. Old habits. She grinned. Good ones. When I got home, I stood in the middle of the apartment and just listened. No footsteps above. No TV's blaring reality shows. Just wind moving through the cracked window and the faint sound of a wind chime from the neighbor's balcony. That night I called Isabel. "How's it feel?" she asked. "Like breathing in full sentences," I said. We talked for an hour. She told me about her final paper, something on intergenerational dignity and agency. I didn't ask if it was about me. I didn't have to. Before we hung up, she said, "You sound like yourself again." And I realized, maybe for the first time, that I was. Have you ever stepped into a new place and realized you'd been living small for so long, you forgot how wide the world could be? That Friday, I wrote a new will. It was short. I left no property to Dana or Eli. Instead, I set up a scholarship fund under my name, Howard Whitaker Opportunity Grant, for first-generation college students studying engineering. The seed money came from the leftover sale balance. Kyle helped me set it up through a foundation he trusted. No big announcement. No plaque. Just quiet help where it was most needed. I also opened a custodial investment account for Isabel. I didn't tell her yet. I would when the time was right. For now, I just wanted her to live her own story untethered by guilt or obligation. 1 week later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, I sat on the park bench across from the library with a sandwich in one hand and a paperback in the other. A little girl rode by on a pink bike with no training wheels, cheeks red, wobbling with glee. Her grandfather cheered from the sidewalk. "You've got it, Gracie. You've got it." I smiled. That used to be me 40 years ago in a different park with a different child. Memories no longer came with bitterness, just color, just clarity. I had no desire to revisit the past, but I also wasn't afraid of it anymore. That's the freedom no one talks about in these so-called life stories. It's not about erasing pain. It's about reclaiming authorship. A week later, I received an envelope in the mail from the law firm handling the closing. Inside, a copy of the final transfer document. The house on Cedarwood Lane was no longer mine. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I folded it and put it away, not out of grief, but gratitude. That home had served its purpose. It gave me roots once, and now it gave me wings. That evening, Isabel arrived unannounced. She carried 2 paper bags. "Dinner," she said, and no, I won't take no for an answer. We ate on the balcony. Pasta with too much cheese, garlic bread slightly burnt, and for dessert, a lemon bar that was nowhere near as good as Margaret's, but still perfect. Afterward, she handed me a small gift bag. Inside, a leather-bound journal with the words, "What I learned after I left," embossed in gold. "I want you to write it all down," she said. "Your words. Your version. Not just for me, for whoever needs it." I looked at her, blinking faster than I'd like to admit. "Think anyone would read it?" I asked. She grinned. "Have you seen the stuff they publish on the internet, Grandpa? Your story is gold." She paused, then added, "You should pitch it to that YouTube channel. Brian's Story. They share stories just like yours, real stuff. Older men speaking truth after years of silence." I chuckled. I thought that was for dramatic types. It is, she winked. And you've earned your drama. We laughed. But later that night, I opened the journal and began to write. My name is Howard Whitaker. I am 77 years old, and I have not disappeared. Not even close. That was the first line of what might become a chapter, or a letter, or nothing. But it was mine. And for every man who's been made to feel invisible, for every father whose silence was mistaken for surrender, maybe this too will join the catalog of real-life stories that deserve to be told. Maybe someday someone will hear it on Brian's Story in a voice older and slower than they're used to. And maybe they'll sit a little longer with their father. Or say thank you. Or simply ask, what part of your story never got told? Because we all carry pieces of wisdom born not from textbooks, but from living, from enduring, from reclaiming the truth in the quietest ways. And these, the quiet ones, are often the most powerful life stories of all. This was another chapter from Brian's Story, where every voice counts and every ending can be a beginning. If this story moved, you share it. Someone out there is still waiting to be seen.